In point 3 of factors influencing cash needs, we are going to look at something called the timing of cash inflows, timing of cash inflows and outflows. So by now we're very familiar with this term as to what inflows and outflows mean. Basically the sources through which cash comes in and the manner in which different expenses through which the cash goes out. Okay, so when I say timing of cash inflows and outflows, I'm talking about when this occurs. Okay, when does money come into the business, that is cash inflow? When does money leave the business, that is cash outflows? Now, when you talk of timing of the two, we say that the timing of these two things or these two events doesn't always match. Correct? At the same time, the amounts may also not match. Sometimes your expenses are a lot more than the amount of income that you make during that period. Like in a week or let's say a month, okay, the cash that comes in might be much, much less than the cash that goes out. Isn't it? Correct? So, also the timing. That means there may be a certain time of the week or certain time of the month where outflows are a lot, correct? But inflows are very little. Inflows do not come at all. Okay, so this timing of the two generally does not match in case of majority of the businesses. It can never happen that the same time when you need some money to pay off some expenses, that exact moment somebody is going to pay you the money or the dues which they owe you. Okay, so it will never happen that the moment some outflow arises, there is also some inflow of cash that you get in the business. Is this clear? So what happens here is things like, say for example, salary. Okay, what happens with salary? Now salary is a very regular thing, correct? And it comes every month. It's like a recurring expense that you have to pay every month in time. So let's say every month uh, or end of every month you pay that particular month's salary. Okay, so the timing of salary going out of your business is monthly, correct? This is outflow, I'll write. Okay, so end of the month it's guaranteed that some cash will leave the business in the form of the salaries. But at the same time, let's say you have inflow of collection from debtors or you have cash sales. Okay, you have collection that you're supposed to money that you're supposed to collect from debtors, or you have some sales that you want to make in cash, and that's a source of inflow. But can you guarantee that you will sell at the end of the month, or that your debtors will somehow pay at the end of the month? No, that timing can never be guaranteed, can never be certain in case of such things. In case of things like sales, you just do not know whether you will sell a product or not. You do not know whether cash will come in or not, right? But salary as an outflow, you are 100% certain that you have to pay that salary at the end of the month. Is this clear? So this is the timing that I'm talking of, right? You are going to have some gap in between how much of money or cash comes into the business and how much of cash goes out of the business. This is clear? So in order to fill in that gap, in order to make sure that there are no shortages, you again need to hold a good cash balance. Okay, so if this, the inflow and outflow gap is very large, okay, that means you have to pay, let's say, at least 1 lakh worth of salaries every single month, end of the month. Okay, but the sale you are making that month is only 50,000. right? So during 1 month, let's say you ended up only selling 50,000, but you need at least 1 lakh to pay salaries. So what do you need to do? You have to have a good cash balance. You need to have a cash reserve of at least 50,000 with you, right? So the bigger this gap, the bigger this difference in the timing of the cash inflow and outflow, the larger will be the cash balance required. Okay, yes. And if by chance, let's say your business is lucky enough where the inflow and the outflow do match with each other, they come around the same time, then you will need a lower cash balance, right? So high cash balance if there is a large gap in timings and amount. Even the amount, like this 1,50,000, big amount, difference is big, isn't it? And you require a low cash reserve or low cash balance if there is a very small gap in the timings. Okay, so let's say end of every month you have given that for your sales, you have given the debtors 1 month's time, and end of every month you get the money back from the debtors. So in that case you will be able to close this gap or meet that difference of money that you may incur. Is this clear? So that was related to the timing of the cash inflows and the cash outflows. I hope it's clear so far, related to factors determining cash needs. And the fourth point we see is nature of demand for firms' products. All right. Now, depending upon what type of product you're selling or what type of service that you're providing to your customers, the demand also for the products and the services is going to fluctuate. All right. Now we know that a lot of goods and services, they are subject to weather conditions, environmental conditions. Also, they are subject to some type of economic conditions. Okay, their prices, their demand keeps going up and down. It keeps fluctuating depending upon all of these conditions. Okay, so we call it a very highly sensitive demand. Fine, because something changes in the environment, the demand for such products also changes. Okay, so let's take for example, say you have the tourism industry and all the businesses related to the tourism industry, like your hotels, shacks are there, and then all these other water sports adventure type thing. Okay, so all of these different activities that are related to tourism industry. Now tourism depends a lot on climate. Most tourist destinations, they are dependent, or their activities are dependent on any changes that take place in the climate. Okay, even things like not just climate but other things like diseases, any outbreaks or epidemics, like even this pandemic for that matter, these also have an impact on such industries. Okay, and the moment such things happen, this tourism industry will also get affected. So what happens is, such industries that face a lot of change in their demand, they have to maintain a very high cash balance in order to meet those uncertain demand changes. Okay, so things like tourism industries, they will have a lot of fluctuating demand, so uncertain demand, okay, or uncertain changes in the demand. For this matter, they need to have a very high cash balance, because they do not know when the sudden demand is going to suddenly rise, when it might suddenly come down. So in order to meet the demands at that particular time when the season is suddenly at a peak, they need to maintain or need to have enough cash balance. Now at the same time, there are certain firms that uh, are not really dependent upon environmental changes. By environment, I don't just mean the natural or the physical environment, that is the floods, climate, weather, but it also can be other things external to the business. It can be some economic policies, situations, and so on. Okay. Now, in case of businesses like, let's say, public utilities, what are public utilities? Things like water, electricity, okay, even things like your fuel, fine. Now, in these cases, we say that the demand is inelastic. Inelastic means what? Tourism, we will say demand is elastic. It changes a lot. Whereas in case of public utilities, the demand is inelastic. Fine, which means that the demand doesn't really change much along with any changes in the external environment. For example, no matter what happens, you still consume electricity, correct? Even if let's say there is a pandemic or there is an outbreak or there is some other thing that happens or some government policy changes, the consumption of electricity by people still pretty much remains on average the same. You still require the same amount of water. Then even fuel, petrol, diesel, no matter how much those prices go up, we still require that product and the demand will remain the same for those products, right? So it is inelastic demand. Now in case of such type of businesses, they don't need to maintain a very large cash reserve. Why? Because they have a constant, a very certain type of cash flow from their regular business or regular services, and they don't see a lot of fluctuations in demand. So they don't have to worry about what if suddenly the demand rises or suddenly the demand drops, right? So they can maintain or they can afford to maintain a very low cash balance. Is this clear? So some businesses have elastic demand. Elastic means it fluctuates a lot. It can go up during certain seasons or because of certain conditions, and it can go really low, it can fall during other seasons. Whereas some businesses like public utilities or those that provide essential goods and commodities, in such cases the demand doesn't really fluctuate as much. It is inelastic. It doesn't keep changing every now and then. Okay, so for them, the cash inflow remains very stable, it remains very constant. It doesn't keep on going up and down. So such businesses can afford to maintain a very low cash balance. They don't have to worry about any uncertainties in the cash going out or the cash coming in, right? So for now, we have these 4 points related to the factors influencing your cash needs.